Got a fun one here today for you guys. Joined by Mr. Danny Cooper. D Coop, appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited. I haven't done one of these in a while.
Yes, sir. Gonna bring a lot of fun, different first time perspectives to the pod. But just to start off, for the people who don't know you, if you just want to explain sort of your life journey and what you're up to now.
Yeah, so my name's Danny Cooper. I'm a basketball trainer based outside of Philadelphia. I started training when I was 16 years old. I just turned 23, and I kind of trained and played at the same time. I played 3 years of college basketball at Moravian University, which is a small D3, like an hour from Philly, I would say. So I kind of called myself the trainer player, where I was training and playing at the same time. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to train kids from age 5 all the way up to NBA players such as Mac McClung and Lamar Stevens. And it's been a really cool journey being able to travel the world training through this orange ball. And I've got to meet a lot of really cool people. So, yeah.
When it comes to obviously being an athlete, there's so much you have to worry about. But not only were you balancing that a few years back or even last year, but you were also balancing being a trainer. What was that like? And can you talk about kind of how you balanced your time?
Yeah, it was a lot. So in the summers, that's kind of a trainer's like season, whereas it's most people's off season. So I was in the gym training probably from 8 or 9 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. some days. So I really had to time manage. So I would usually wake up around 5:30, get my own workout in probably from like 6 to 7, then get a lift in from 7 to 8. Then I'd train all day, and then sometimes I'd get shots at night. So it was kind of like a, nonstop 6 or 7 days a week for 3, 4 straight months. So it was definitely a grind, but it really taught me time management. It taught me, how to be mentally strong. And then I think so usually when the season started and I would go to school, I'd kind of shut the training part down. So that was nice just to focus on playing. But in those summers, they were definitely a grind. So.
I kind of got a two-part question here. One, what was it like training a player like Mac, and what is it like? And obviously, the All-Star dunk contest that we got to all witness was a great experience, and you were there. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so training Mac has been amazing. Whenever I go and pick a client, I first check and see how they are as a person. So Mac's just such a great, genuine guy, and if you know me, I kind of keep my client lists pretty small and I keep my circle tight. So I'm not really interested in how good you are. I'm really more interested in the type of person you are and how we can grow together. So shout out to Mac for giving me the opportunity to work with him. Actually on court working with him, I mean, people always hear like NBA players are different, but like Mac's really different. I mean, my guy Nate, who's with me 24/7, we guard him 1-on-2, and it's hard for us to come by a stop. So, we just have fun with it. We try to challenge him. We try to break down his film and help him get better. But I mean, it's just kudos to him for all the hard work he's put in. And he's the most resilient person that I know because, he's been cut probably 6, 7, 8 times and he just keeps plugging away. So I feel like I learned way more from him than he probably learns from me. But so that's been really cool. And then the All-Star experience was just super surreal. We didn't really know what to expect. We were kind of thinking what the other dunkers were going to do. We didn't know if his dunks were going to be good enough. And it's a funny story. He actually practiced it for 2, 3 months beforehand. So we would drive to Delaware. He was there with the Delaware Bluecoats, or he would drive to Moravian, and we would kind of like secretly practice the dunks because we didn't want anyone to see what the dunks were going to be. And it was really cool. The actual weekend was, couldn't have went better. He almost got a perfect score if it wasn't for Candace Parker giving him a 49. But no, it was really crazy. And then the coolest part was after we got to kind of celebrate and be with everybody, and really quote unquote famous people were coming up to him asking for photos, and we were almost just like on top of the world. So it was a really humbling experience for sure.
Now, for those dunks, would you go up and do them first so he knew like what to see?
Yeah, exactly.
Lower the rim a couple feet.
Yeah, yeah. I taught him all those dunks. Nah, I've only probably finished like 5 dunks in my life, but he's taught me a couple things. So
That makes
Yeah.
half the people in here, because I know these two haven't dunked before.
love it.
Yeah, I don't need a dunk to bust your ass though. That's the crazy part.
All right, all right.
But no, going back to your training style, we had a coach Gerard Calhoun from Youngstown State on, and he said a quote
Okay.
that it's a young man's game. And that sort of resonates to me with, your training style being on court as opposed to, a lot of the trainers you see will just stand back and watch. And I honestly prefer, in my opinion, if a trainer's on court, hands on, I feel like those live reps are more beneficial than X amount of shots.
Yeah, so my training style is the games-based approach, which essentially just means like try to make the training and the practice as much look as much to the game as possible. So like I said, my guy Nate and I are out there putting Mac in different game situations, playing 1-on-2, making it even harder than the game if we can. I'm not a big fan of like kind of pre-planned movements or, on air 1-on-0 stuff. So our guys seem to really enjoy it. And me as a player, I found it helped me translate my work to the game the most. And it's not always pretty. There's, I think, a trainer out there who says like train ugly. So a lot of times I get my young players and they get really frustrated and, because we're missing probably 70% of the shots in the workout. But I always explain to them, I'm like, you can go find another trainer who's going to have you shoot wide open layups and make you feel good about yourself. But that's not my job. My job is to make it harder for you guys here so that when you get in the game, the struggle in our workout was harder than the struggle in the game. So I found it to be really beneficial and for long-term game translation. I think it's the best way to go.
Yeah, I love that, especially, for younger players. It's like that big bro, little bro mentality where little brother's always trying to beat big brother. If you're, yourself are guarding 10, 12, 14-year-olds, only going to score 30% of the time. But then when they're not guarding a 20-year-old and they're guarding, teenagers, I feel like that will translate much better.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite saying in the offseason is go find a gym where you're going to be the worst player. So I think a lot of players don't do that because they shy away from competition and they don't want to be losing every day. But if you're really a dog and like you want to improve and you're a 12-year-old, go find a gym where you're playing with a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-olds and get your ass kicked every day. And you're going to get so much better. So
that's what I always tell Nick, come to the gym with me. You'll be the worst player in the gym. But, sort of looking at your business, I mean, you have academic offerings, academy offerings, camps, online training programs. I saw you went and did some overseas stuff. If you just sort of want to touch on, the grind with that being, such a young trainer and going up against all these people and just doing it your way.
Yeah, so I've been training since I was 16, like I said, but I've been really a full-time entrepreneur since June. So say 4.5 months. And my kind of definition of that is like, I moved out of mom and dad's house. I got my own apartment, got my own car. So like, I'm really back against the wall. Like everything's on me right now. So it's been a real challenge, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of good days, a lot of bad days. But I think with anything, it's like you just realize through those bad days, like you just got to keep plugging away and keep going. And every time you're about to quit and you keep going, you see like the growth and the progress. So that's been really cool. It's been an adjustment because I'm usually back at school. So now this is my first time training in the fall. So kind of figuring out kids' schedules and different stuff like that. So yeah, it's been, I think a lot of people have glorified entrepreneurship, but I'm trying to, like with our vlogs and stuff, and I need to do a better job of it, like really highlight the not so fun and pretty stuff because there's a lot of shit that is not fun and not pretty. But so yeah, I love it though. I'm learning to really love that part of it, like the process and, I'm not in it for the cars and the watches. I'm in it to actually build something and do it with my boy Nate and just enjoy that grind. So.
Amen. And I feel like having that, perspective alone and doing it for the grind and just the want to get better versus the luxuries that come with making it to the top. I feel like that's how you end up making it to the top. So applaud you for that.
I appreciate it. Day by day.
Yes, sir. Love it. But sort of segueing, I feel like it'll be fun just for young basketball minds in different sectors to just sort of debate the future of basketball. And being a trainer will let you start it off. You know, a lot of threes, a lot of at rim finishes. That's 85, 90% of your offense right there. When you're
Yeah.
training, do you keep stuff like that in mind? Or is it not really a thing that you think of?
I mean, a little bit in the back of my mind. I'm really not an analytics guy. So, I mean, my bread and butter in college was the mid range. So, I'll tell my players like the long two is the worst shot we could possibly shoot. So, like, try to keep it between like 15 to 17 feet if you're shooting a midi or shoot a three. And we do a lot of threes and finishes. But yeah, I guess I keep it in mind. But I never really tell a player like don't shoot a certain shot unless it's like a long two. So, yeah.
I don't know, Nick, you're talking about your big man stuff earlier. I didn't know if you were going to get into that or not.
I didn't know if you guys wanted to segue in. My opinion on it is like we've seen as of like the past like 10-ish years, you've seen like the Jaleel Okafors, the Luka Garzas, those type of players the Drew Timmies, those type of players who dominate in college, and it kind of just doesn't translate. You know what I mean? Like back in the 80s and 90s, the best big man, the Patrick Ewings, the Hakeem Olajuwons, unanimous, top 5 pick, like game just easily translates to the NBA level, and now we don't really see it. Like the Zach Edey's, do we think Zach Edey is gonna like make a big name for himself in the NBA? Like, I don't really know. You know what I mean?
I think the one thing, and this specifically matters for bigs, I think guards can adjust based on their skill set and especially, wings if they're lengthy and they can defend. But for bigs specifically, I feel like now to make the NBA, you have to have one of two things. You have to either be incredibly skilled. If you're 6'10", 6'11", you have to be incredibly skilled. You can shoot a three, you can handle the ball, you can have guard skills at that height. Or you have to be tall and lengthy and can defend. Because now the pick and roll is becoming so incredibly important. If you like Evan Mobley is a great example. He's a fantastic pick and roll defender. He's going to be in the NBA for a long time because he can shoot a little bit, he can handle it a little bit. Like he's 7 foot, but he's so good at defending a pick and roll that every team's going to want him when they get in free agency, right? Like he's a perfect example of that. But you see these guys like Drew Timme, Hunter Dickinson, like these guys aren't the best pick and roll defenders. And while they're great college players, they can have great back to the basket skills. They can't defend a ball screen. And I feel like now that's what power forwards and centers are being judged for unless you have an incredible skill. If you can't defend a ball screen, you have to be able to shoot. You have to be 7'1" or taller. You have to be able to block shots like the Nick Claxtons. He's a big that can't shoot, but he can still stay in the NBA because he's a pick and roll defender. So I think you either have to be unbelievably skilled as a big right now to be in the league, you can shoot or handle the ball, or you have to be able to defend a pick and roll and block shots. If you're a big and you can't do one of those two things, I don't think you can last in the NBA now moving forward.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me too, just looking at, the levels of it. I guess Danny can sort of break it down too even more. I feel like in the NBA, it is the situation that you explained, Dan. But then in college, I feel like, if you have a dominant big man, you're set. So it sort of just depends on like the level.
Yeah, I think, in college, there's a lot less foreign players too. And I don't know if this correlates, but a lot of the young players that I train, if they're taller, they're told by their AAU and travel coaches to play the 4 and 5. So they're working on big men skills. So when they come to me, they have no guard skills, but they're 5 feet in 7th grade, right? So like I always tell them everyone's a point guard. You should always train like a point guard. So if you look at the best bigs in the NBA, like the unicorns, the Giannis's, the Wembys, the Jokic's, the Embiid's, those dudes are all foreign. So I don't know. I'm not educated enough on those countries and how those guys got developed, but I would like I would assume that they, number one, probably played other sports growing up. So like I think Embiid played soccer, so that kind of gives them better motor skills and more talented that way. But I also think they're probably not put into a box like a lot of young Americans are. So maybe that's why the guys who are the best players in college, they can't really translate. And then also, I think if you just have a dominant big in college, there's not that much competition for that. Like Timmy was just killing everybody because there's no Wembanyamas or Giannis's in college. So it's like, you know, he's going against other American bigs who, for the most part, who just aren't as good as him. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to make a point. You mentioned, like, because it's true, the best big man in the league right now, Jokic, Embiid, if you want to include Giannis as a big, they're all foreign. I didn't even really put that together, but because, I mean, I think I read somewhere that Anthony Davis said that he actually trained as a point guard all the way up until he became like 6'10". And that
Yep.
might be one of the only American big men. But you can see it now. He can hit threes consistently. The Lakers even let him bring the ball up the court to initiate the offense. Like, they'll just go down the court, let him bring it up as the 5. I think Karl Anthony Towns is another good example of a skilled offensive big man who, you know, has great guard skills. I think you mentioned Nick Claxton. I want to mention Rudy Gobert as one of the guys who are in the NBA, but like I mentioned the Jahlil Okafor, like he was the most dominant college basketball player that, like, I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and I'm just watching and I'm like, this dude's going to be the best player in the NBA in 5 years. And then out of the league in 4 years. Anthony Bennett, you know, like guys like that who, like, the game just doesn't translate. I don't know.
It's funny because sorry to interrupt. It's funny because I'm a Sixers guy too. So I remember like when we drafted Jahlil, like the whole city was really excited. I mean, he had a really good rookie year too. And then I guess like he just came in at the literal exact wrong time because the league was going in the opposite direction. So
yeah, I feel like a big factor in it too. And we were debating this the other day at practice, the difference like with the NBA and college and why you can have such a dominant big. A lot of people don't realize the defensive 3-second rule isn't a thing in college. So a lot of teams, you know, Syracuse 2-3 defense, you get 7'3", 240-pound guy. Just have him stand in the paint with his hands up, muck everything up.
My high school teammate's actually at Syracuse right now, so he's 7'3" or 7'4".
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if the new coach is keeping the 2-3 zone, but just have him stand there with his hands up.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely plays a huge factor in it.
Do you think, now this is another point that like a lot of analysts make, like, do you think Steph is the reason that this has changed? Like, you 2-on-1 transition, like a wide open 3 in transition 2-on-1 is a great shot now. If we saw that 10 years ago, we're like, what are you doing? Go get a foul. Go get free throws. What are we doing here?
I wouldn't specifically blame Steph because I think Damian Lillard's very similar. He shoots shots from that far anyway. I think it's just the way basketball's heading. But I was going to make a point about international players and how, Nick, you were talking about a lot of bigs, right? Jokic and Embiid. Luka Doncic is somebody we haven't talked about yet. I think the reason why these international players are having such a great head start, and we're seeing it over these last few years, is because of the pro leagues they're playing in their own countries. Like, Luka Doncic was the MVP of what people argue to be the next toughest league outside of the NBA. And this is not a knock on college. College basketball is unbelievably difficult to play in. You have to be a fantastic player to play college, let alone to get to the next level. But these European leagues and leagues in you know, Hong Kong and these leagues all over the country, or all over the nation, all over the globe per se, are
spit it out,
are incredibly hard. And I don't think people realize that. Like, Victor Wembanyama was scoring 18, 19 points per game in this league, and I think one day in the NBA he could average 28, 29 plus, right? And people say, well, the NBA is easier to score in. I just think in these leagues, there's really tough competition. And when you have 17, 18, 19-year-olds playing and getting these reps compared to college, where, of course, college is unbelievably difficult too, people say Luka Doncic's league was the second toughest, and he comes in the NBA and does what he does. I just think these international leagues are being heavily underrated, and I think that these players are coming into the NBA with more experience than Americans are coming from college.
Yeah, I still think college is a very positive route, and there's immense competition on D3, D2, D1, and JUCO levels. I think where you have to point the finger is the grassroots AAU programs. And, might upset a lot of people in this. There's probably 10% of them out there are great, develop the kids, have their values, number one priority. But 90% of these AAU programs to me are a joke. I think, a lot of them are cash grabs. They put together tournaments that no real sets, no real, concepts. It's just go out there and street ball, and whoever drops 40, make a highlight tape, post on your Instagram. So I don't think, kids doing that when they're 10 years old all the way to 18, then they get to college and then they learn the fundamentals versus someone like Luka playing Real Madrid since he was 15, 14 in their, JV program. So he's playing real competition, real fundamentals, getting real work in, while a lot of these kids over the summer are just, hucking up threes and not really doing much else.
It's funny that you kind of said that too, because I don't know if this is any correlation, but I saw an Instagram post the other day. It was like Bronny and who's the kid from Duke who does TikTok?
Jared McCain.
Jared McCain.
Yeah, so they were doing like their dances in their, I guess, Midnight Madness or whatever. And sometimes I'll read like Instagram comments, and a lot of them were like, "No wonder the Europeans are passing Americans because they're so focused on like the dances and stuff like that." And I'm not one to hate on like the TikTok stuff. Like I think it's cool. People put themselves out there. I mean, I do social media as well, but it is something to think about when like you probably don't see any of the Europeans like really worrying about their social brand or stuff like that. So I think not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but I think the added options now that American kids have where like they can make money now building a brand, maybe 100% of the focus where a kid in Spain is all basketball. Maybe an American is now 82% basketball, 18% TikTok, where that 18% they could be filling in basketball. I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but I think just the added options that kids have nowadays maybe is contributing to them not playing as good of basketball. I mean, if that makes sense, but
yeah, that made perfect sense. And obviously, I mean, the USA is still going to be supreme, have the most talent if they put it in the field. I mean, we saw with FIBA this year, that USA team was still legit. They had a bunch of young coming players, bunch of all-stars, a few guys who could be an MVP conversation, and they didn't even get a medal. So, I think America will always produce the most talent, but when it comes to, the fundamentals, I feel like the gap is closing, and it's closing fast.
Yeah. I will say, you go, Nick.
I was just going to say the gap is definitely closing. Like think about top 10 players in the NBA right now. 4 or 5 are foreign. Like, when have we ever said that? You know what I mean? That is just something that like is blasphemous to me.
And I have one thing to say before you go, Danny.
Yeah.
I think another reason for this, and this could be completely wrong, but we've had these conversations over here and with our program, is that not a lot of kids watch basketball anymore. They don't actually watch film. It's all social media. It's all highlights. It's all, what do I see on Instagram? What do I see on TikTok? Posters and deep threes. Probably over in these European leagues, not probably, in these European leagues, they're watching film. They're breaking down the game. They're getting better. Like, these kids nowadays don't watch basketball. And I think that really hurts, like the Bronnies and the Jared McCains. I'm not saying that they don't watch basketball, but
Yeah.
these TikToks, and you guys get what I'm saying. Like, now the focus isn't as much watching film. It's, what can I see on Instagram, House of Highlights, ESPN, that draws my attention, rather than sitting down watching, a press break or watching, offensive sets or pistol or any sort of situation. I just think now kids are starting to lose love for the game and starting to watch the game less.
Yeah. And I mean, adding on to just the European basketball, one of my good friends, Coleman Ayers with By Any Means Basketball. I don't know if you guys have seen his content, but he does like global camps. He calls it Grow the Game, and he was nice enough to let me come out with him last April, and we did camps in Iceland and Italy. And let me tell you, those boys in Iceland are hoopers, like the last place that you would expect. And what was really cool is not only like did they play the European style and like move the ball and everything, but like it seems that the player over there has such more of an appreciation for like coaching and the game than people in America. And I don't know if that's because Americans are just so used to like having trainers and coaches and good facilities. But like one of the kids in Iceland I was helping with the shot, I think he had like a broken foot or broken arm, something like that. But so he couldn't participate in the clinic, and I was helping him with a shot. And after like 5 minutes, he was like, "Thank you so much. Like that's the most that anyone's ever helped me and gotten me better." Something along those lines. And it just really spoke to me. Like you don't get that many thank yous in America or that much like gratitude towards helping someone, I guess. And it was like these kids in Iceland just want to get better, and how receptive they were to training and coaching was really just a beautiful thing to see. So I think that's also a big reason why the Europeans are on that. I mean, not just Europeans, everywhere around the world. So
Yeah, I definitely think that cultural difference, and I think a lot of it does stem down to that AAU, like I was referring to earlier, grassroots, that breeds, not for every player, but a lot of top players especially, sort of a sense of entitlement. You know, since they're 13 years old, they're told they're going to make the league. You know, they're getting $50K as a freshman in high school to go play for this program because they know it's going to produce views and viewership and help grow their content, making them money. Their mama's getting a new Birkin bag, their dad's getting a new car, and they're seeing that at such a young age, and it's impressionable on their minds, so it sticks with them and they feel like they deserve all this versus being grateful for what they get, which I think definitely plays a factor in all of this.
for sure.
I definitely think making a point more towards like the NIL, things like that, like the difference in the past 5 years of like coaches going to visit a kid that they're trying to recruit. Not like back then, it's trying to get to know the kid. Is this kid going to fit our program? Now the kid's first question is, well, how much are you going to pay me? What's the NIL? Like, and you know, there are some of these kids that, you know, grow up in not the best areas who that's their first thing. Like, especially their parents are telling them like, look, you got to get us out of here. Like, you're our ticket out. So that also puts pressure not only on the kid, but on the programs just trying to recruit him. Like, and that also gives benefits to like teams with the most donors. You know what I mean? Like, Bronny's getting a $7 million NIL evaluation. I'm not saying that's all through USC, but like there are, and no discredit to Bronny, but there are some better talent getting paid significantly less. And I think that it like builds and like you were saying, Dave, like a sense of entitlement, like, oh, well, I'm not going to go there. They're like giving me pennies compared to what this other school's giving me. It's completely changed in the world of recruiting.
Yeah. I don't think NIL is a negative thing at all. It definitely plays a factor in all that, but that's sort of a end game. You know, once you're 18, 19, if you're a star player, you're going to go to your Duke, your Kansas, your Kentucky, and they still have the most NIL allotment. So in that respect, it didn't change and might bring us down a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah, NIL was definitely long overdue. Players deserve to make money off their name, image, likeness. The fact that Reggie Bush couldn't sign a jersey and sell it, so they vacated all his stuff, is complete BS to me. They're making billions of dollars. They should at the very least be able to, you know, if Danny Cooper wants to go out tomorrow, go to Barnes & Noble and do a book signing or an autograph signing, he can, and he gets that money. But there's no reason, you know, if Mac McClung, when he was in college, pre-NIL, if he has fans, he has the market, he's making millions of dollars for Texas Tech. He has every right off that to be able to go and sign jerseys. So
yeah, he would have made millions in high school.
Yeah.
Let
I
alone
mean,
Texas
think
Tech.
think
So
about
it's
that
crazy.
though. Like the guys who are like those viral sensations, like the Mac McClungs, the who else? You know what I mean? Like guys like
Zion.
that. Yeah, Zion. His
he'd be
highlights
retired.
like the
like OJ high school OJ Mayo.
Yeah. Austin Rivers highlights. Like, we grew up watching those guys. Those guys would have made insane money wherever they went.
Yeah, even like the whole Jelly Fam movement, like they didn't get to monetize any of that. So they might have lost out of like the most out of anyone because, you know, they killed it and they didn't get to make any. So
Yeah. NIL I definitely think is long overdue and still not where it needs to be. But yeah, I don't think that's necessarily the root issue of it all. It just sort of comes down to, like Danny was saying, that appreciation, willingness to be coached, preach of the fundamentals instead of all the outside noise. And I think that's why the gap's closing.
Yeah. I mean, to sum it up, I just read a book called The Art of Thinking Clearly. And one thing that it mentions is like we look for a scapegoat. So we each just made like 2 or 3 points. I don't think it's one reason. I think it's like a combination of everything. But, and let's not downplay, like there are amazing American players as well. But I think the gap has definitely closed and the world is coming. So